Hi guys, welcome back to the shed, and I am Sam from the Unity of Life. Today we're going to be talking about the Drive to Survive Netflix series, but this time we're talking about episode 6 of season 1. So just a little bit of recap of what we talked about in the last episode, which was looking at episode 5. There was a big scandal going on with Force India, where the owner who owned this team was in quite a bit of debt, and he really did not want to give up his team, but he was going to be arrested for all the debt that he was in for not paying his bills. So Lawrence Stroll, he bought Force India in the end, which then meant that his son Lance was guaranteed a spot in this racing team. So this is racing, so he was going to be racing for them in 2019, because don't forget that this series took place in 2018. And there is a fly. Great. Just ignoring that, because it is the summer. It's not flies that's going to kill me off, it's going to be the heat, because goths don't do so well in the heat. But anyway, so that means that there was teammates that, you know, that were already driving for Force India. So because of this change, one of them was going to lose their spot. This is where things got a little bit unfair, and they had two drivers like every other team, and they fought each other a lot. They didn't get on another track, which is a shame, because they were driving for the same team. But yeah, you just butt heads sometimes with people, especially when there's a lot of testosterone running around. So the episode then decided that it would start to focus on, and again, there's a name coming up. If I am completely destroying his name, I apologise. Esteban Ochon, and again, he said that he started off karting just like any other driver. They all seem to start off karting when they're kids, and it gives them that experience that they need to get into F1 eventually. I know that there's a few stages. You're not just guaranteed a spot. There is some stages to get in there, and you've got to be the best of the best to be able to get us there. So when they were trying to decide, Force India, which driver that they were going to keep and which driver they were going to get rid of, they were looking for the driver that brought in the most sponsors, right? Because the driver that brought in the most sponsors brought in the most money. And like I've said previously, the more money that a team has, the better their car is. And the better the car is, the more likely that they're going to be getting onto the podium, and they're going to be getting quite high points, both for the World Championship for the driver and for the Constructors' Championship as well for the team. So the other driver, who was Sergio Perez, again, if I'm mispronouncing that, I do apologise, who, as we all know now, is actually driving for Red Bull, and he's now Max Verstappen's new teammate as of 2021. So it cut to some scenes where you saw those two teammates driving, and they took each other out of the race. They wiped each other out, and they did this multiple times, which wasn't very good for the team, because that meant they weren't getting to the podium, they weren't getting any points, because neither driver finished the race. So the rest of the team were getting really fed up with these two, to the point where they warned them that if they didn't pack it in, that they would both be sacked from the team. I believe they weren't allowed to race against each other anymore, because it was getting to the point where it was very dangerous, and it wasn't just dangerous for those two particular drivers, but it was putting all the other drivers on the track at risk as well. And so this led to a lot of tension between these two. So some of the teams, I notice when they're looking for these drivers, they don't take a chance on any new and up and coming talent talent. Some do, some don't. Some like to stay with what they know, and some will, like, they're going to take a chance on somebody who's new and is in F2 and is potentially could come up into F1 if there's not space available. So there's a reason that this gets mentioned. So it then moves on to the Singapore Grand Prix, where Esteban is actually wiped out by Perez. Because Perez was actually driving very angrily, shall we say. Like I said, there's all this tension and there's all this testosterone. Okay, so it seemed like, so Perez, he did wipe Esteban Ocon out of the race, and yet Perez got to keep his seat on Force India for 2019. And Ocon, he didn't secure a seat whatsoever. And the reason that this happened was because Perez, he brought in the most sponsors. So he was bringing in all the money. So when it came down to it, it really didn't matter how talented the driver actually was. It was how much money that driver could bring to the team, which is a bit unfair, especially when you've got the talent and you've been there and you've been racing with these people for quite some time. Because you're not bringing in as much money as some your teammate is, you're just going to lose your seat eventually because they've had enough of you and the team has been bought out, and some billionaires pretty much bought a team for his son, so his son is guaranteed to always have a place in F1, which is rather annoying and is rather very unfair. So like I said, Esteban, he didn't secure a seat at all for the 2019 series. So it did turn out that Esteban, he ended up becoming a reserve driver for Mercedes in 2019, before he did eventually find a seat in the 2020 race, so he was able to race again. But it was very nice of Mercedes to say, look, you drove for a rival team. We can't give you a seat in the race, but we can, make sure you're still part of the F1 experience and you can be a reserve driver just in case something happens to one of our drivers, which was very rare. Drivers don't tend to miss a race unless they certainly have to. So I think that's all I have for this particular episode. It just drove me a little bit nuts purely because he was a very good driver, and because he wasn't bringing in a lot of money, he was told to pack his bags and get out, because they're a team that didn't have an awful lot of money to begin with. They were always at the back of the track. Getting a podium for them was very rare, and it was going to be it was a huge achievement if they did get a podium. So yeah, he was dealt an unfair hand, in all fairness, and it is very sad that we still live in a society, in a world where money makes the world go round. It is absolutely ridiculous. I get it, because trying to set up this business with no money has not been easy, but it's getting there slowly, like with baby steps. But yeah, so that's all I really have on today's episode, so I hope you enjoyed that. I know it was very brief, and I know that I didn't have a lot on it, but it's really, what can you say about this really unfair advantage? Because like I said, they didn't want him because of his talent. They only wanted him for sponsors and money, and to be fair, that's a bit unfair on both Perez and Esteban, because it just proves that they didn't really give a crap if you were a very good, talented driver, or you brought in the money. It was all about the money. It wasn't about you yourself, and that just shows just how much respect that they have for you as an individual and as a human being. And it's very wrong that you're judging somebody on the value of how much they're worth rather than the actual talent. So next episode we will be looking at episode 7 of this Drive to Survive season 1. But I'll see you then. Bye.